Buckingham Palace is reeling. King Charles has just demoted Queen Camilla. The trigger? A long-lost letter from Princess Diana, filled with raw emotion and stinging words about Camilla, has surfaced, and it's authentic. Within hours, royal duties were stripped, titles retracted, and palace roles reshuffled. Public reaction was swift. Camilla, once at the heart of the monarchy, now finds herself quietly edged out. Behind the scenes, tension is boiling over. Was this Charles honoring Diana's legacy or bowing to public pressure? One letter shook the crown, and now the royal family is forever changed. Stay with us, because this story is only beginning. The letter that shook the palace. A dusty archive box opened was all it took. A long-lost letter in Diana's neat handwriting surfaced, criticizing Camilla's influence over Charles. Discovered during a royal estate cataloging, and immediately authenticated by handwriting experts saying it's indisputably hers. Within hours, images of the letter spread online, fans crowdsourcing transcriptions. The headline? Diana versus Camilla, the letter that changes everything. The palace's reaction was immediate. Shock remixed with panic. Courtiers froze when diplomats began asking about the royal scandal. "This letter destabilizes everything," one aide whispered. Security teams scrambled. The archivist who found it was escorted under guard. Staff received urgent notes. "Expect tomorrow's announcement." There was no calm, just the sense that silence was no longer option. Across media outlets, Britain, the US, Australia, the news exploded. "Never-before-seen Diana document," declared the Times. Social platforms lit up with speculation. What had Diana said? Who leaked it? The global press asked if it signaled a palace civil war. One tabloid's front page read, "King Charles must act." The spotlight shifted back to Clarence House. Palace insiders admit alarm. If Charles doesn't respond quickly, the narrative becomes Diana's letter, not his reign, said one advisor. Already, questions abounded. Was this a sign of hidden palace factions? Could a single letter rewrite Camilla's role? Charles had hours, not days, to choose. Preserve unity or punish publicly. The palace braced for impact. Transition to point 2. 60 words. The letter wasn't just a relic. It held sharp words from Diana herself. Now, everyone wonders, what exactly did she say? Was it a simple warning, or something that pierces deep into the heart of Charles and Camilla's legacy? Coming up next, we uncover Diana's words, their emotional power, and why they still hurt today. What Diana's letter said. The letter revealed a deeply personal tone. Diana described Camilla as a silent force steering the king's thoughts away from his family. Adding, "I fear she's already begun rewriting his reign." Those phrases, private and raw, are now public, cutting with emotional weight. It's not gossip, it's insight from someone who loved deeply and hurt deeply. Timing mattered. The document dated from 1995, just before Diana's separation from Charles. In context, her words weren't jealousy. They were a woman fearing her future unravel. This came when everything was falling apart, says one historian. Diana's letter conveyed heartbreak disguised as counsel, an attempt to warn, not condemn. Yet the criticism stings harder now, years later. The emotional undercurrent is undeniable. She wrote of pain, saying her heart could not bear another whisper from someone so close to the king. That emotional subtext fueled headlines. Observers say her language spoke of wounded trust more than rivalry. As one BBC pundit noted, "These are the words of a woman grappling with her place within a marriage, a monarchy, and a legacy." Those words hurt today because they challenge the current narrative. Camilla has spent years reshaping her image, from scandal survivor to queen consort. But Diana's voice, once again, unsettles that image. Diana said things she never broadcasted. But now the world hears it, said a royal expert. And for Charles, that echo of his first wife's words acts like a ticking clock. With Diana's critique now laid bare, all eyes turn to Charles. He needed to navigate this crossroads. Will he defend Camilla or distance from Diana's memory? And done in the glare of global attention. The battle lines were drawn, not between past and present wives, but between a king's legacy and a queen's future. Up next, the crisis unfolding inside Clarence House. Charles faces a crisis. Within hours of the leak, King Charles was briefed in private, his face reportedly drained of color as aides unfolded the letter before him. He looked decades older in that moment, said one courtier. A meeting was called. Security, legal, and PR teams assembled. No one knew whether this was a moment of truth or destruction. A flood of palace correspondence followed. Drafts of official statements poured in. Royal protection officers zipped confidential notices to global embassies. No comment, ongoing review. While internal staff were told to expect significant changes. It felt like the palace was rewriting itself, one insider later confessed. Charles's closest advisors were now coordinating narrative control with surgical precision. But the personal toll was clear. Charles knew this crossed more than palace politics. It exposed his heart. By referencing Diana, Camilla's position was under fire, and so was his own judgment. Fellow royals expressed concern. He has to choose, safeguard his wife or honor his past, said one former cabinet member. It wasn't just palace optics, it was legacy and love and duty. In those hours, priorities shifted. Would Charles publicly demote Camilla, ask for her withdrawal, or stand firm, fully supporting his queen consort? Whatever he chose would echo beyond headlines. One final moment of crisis, caught in the glare of Diana's words, had drawn him to the brink. And now, the palace held its breath. With the letter's words still burning in the air, Camilla's future hung by a thread, and Charles had to decide. Public, private, legal, and emotional stakes were all colliding. And in just hours, the palace would deliver a verdict. Coming up next, how this shapes Camilla's fate, and whether the king will sacrifice her for his first wife's memory. Camilla's standing on the line. Camilla was once the monarchy's most unlikely queen. Now, her status was slipping by the minute. Until now, she held prestigious roles: queen consort, public face at state functions, patron to multiple charities. But Diana's letter brought those titles under fire. Suddenly, everything she held felt borrowed, said a royal correspondent. One letter threatened decades of rebuilding. Inside palace walls, the tone changed quickly. Once whispered admiration for Camilla's charity work turned into silence. Some aides no longer addressed her with her full royal title. Sources say palace schedules were under review. One insider noted, "When meetings get mysteriously cancelled, that's your answer." Camilla's influence wasn't revoked, but it was stalling. Supporters behind the scenes tried to shield her. A few longtime allies, particularly from Charles's side, urged the king not to overreact. One loyalist reportedly said, "Camilla saved him. That should count for something." But others, especially newer aides aligned with William and Kate, believed this was a moment to reset. A quiet power divide began to emerge, and Camilla knew it. Aides described her as quieter, skipping briefings, requesting fewer engagements. She was present, but dimmed, one said. She wasn't weeping in hallways, but she also wasn't strategizing. The queen consort, once central to the palace machine, now stood still, unsure whether her next move was a bow or a goodbye. As speculation mounted, King Charles made his decision. After hours of emergency meetings and closed-door strategy, the palace was ready. A statement was drafted, final edits made, phones silenced. At precisely noon, Buckingham Palace issued an announcement that echoed across the globe. Coming up next, the moment Charles broke royal tradition and took action against his own queen. The announcement drops. The palace statement dropped like thunder. Camilla would be stepping back from a series of public roles. It was framed carefully, in light of recent events and with the king's full support. But no one missed the tone. This was a public demotion, and it wasn't framed as optional. It wasn't a request, it was royal recalibration, said a senior aide. Media outlets erupted. "King Charles demotes Queen Camilla," splashed the front of the Daily Mail. Sky News ran breaking footage, looping the phrase, "reduction in royal responsibilities." The tone was clear. This wasn't retirement, it was redirection. Her scheduled visits to hospitals, charities, and community groups were removed from the royal calendar. Silence replaced ceremony, noted one reporter. Inside the palace, reactions were mixed. Camilla reportedly received the final version just hours before release. Whether she accepted it with grace or fury is unclear. Some say she nodded, others say she stood speechless. A palace aide who witnessed the moment said, "She knew this wasn't about her today. It was about Diana yesterday." The tone of the announcement was strategic. It avoided blame, but didn't deny impact. Charles appeared solemn in his follow-up statement. "We honor the past to preserve the future." That line alone sent shockwaves. Was it respect for Diana or regret toward Camilla? One thing was certain. Nothing about the queen consort's position would ever be the same again. Now that the announcement was made, attention shifted to specifics. What exactly was taken from Camilla? And what signs proved she was truly being sidelined? This wasn't just about words. It was about symbols. Coming up next, titles lost, roles reassigned, and a sudden absence in the public eye that confirmed the Queen's fall from favor. What was stripped away? The full extent of the shakeup became clear within 24 hours. Camilla's honorary patronages with key military and healthcare charities were reallocated. Princess Anne and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, picked up several of her former roles. Online royal bios were updated overnight. Camilla's section shrunk, one Twitter user noticed, a digital dethroning. Beyond patronages, small but telling symbols vanished. Her name was quietly removed from upcoming event programs. Seating charts for Trooping the Color were revised. Her placement moved back by 2 rows. One event insider remarked, "It was subtle but brutal." She was no longer center stage. Even internal palace memos no longer referred to her as Queen Consort, just Her Majesty Camilla. Her royal honorifics remained intact officially, but behind the scenes, She was no longer the king's co-pilot. Camilla's speeches, once frequent and warmly received, were paused indefinitely. Palace insiders leaked that future events would prioritize the Waleses, code for William and Kate. The power shift wasn't just public, it was institutional. Fan response was fierce. Online forums erupted with debate. She had it coming, clashed with, they used her and cast her aside. Commentators called it symbolic decrowning. A Vanity Fair columnist wrote, "It's not about protocol, it's about pain." Diana still rules the royal memory. Camilla, once rising, now watched as her influence faded, word by word, title by title. As public eyes locked on Camilla's fall, the palace worked overtime to spin the message. The monarchy needed to sound united, not shaken, and behind those castle walls, the PR war began. Next up, how the palace tried to reframe the scandal, invoking Diana's memory and unity, while quietly preparing for the next shift in royal power. Palace, spin, and messaging. The palace went into messaging overhaul as soon as the news broke. A formal spokesperson said, "This decision reflects our commitment to integrity, not to punish." Inside palace halls, aides swapped talking points, blurred language designed to frame this as forward-focused, not scandal-driven. One leaked memo read, "Focus on unity, not division." But insiders admit it felt more defensive than declarative. Channels were activated. Buckingham's website and social feeds emphasized Camilla's charitable work, only now framed as ongoing rather than primary. Local press was briefed off the record. This move was guided by Diana's lasting legacy, they said, echoing palace-wide rationale. Analysts say the angle was clear: invoke Diana to justify Camilla's softened role. They want the public to see tradition, not tyranny, a strategy consultant noted. Meanwhile, internal leaks circulated. Staffers pushed lines like, "This was always about preserving Diana's memory." Another leak offered, "This clears up mixed messaging. It's now straight again." The palace spun the narrative as protective, not punitive. Commentators cited a PR shift. "We see a monarchy leaning into coherence over chaos," one editor wrote, but some warned it looked like damage control. Was unity genuine or courtroom spin? Public relations experts noted the careful tone. There were no defensive interviews, no emotional statements, just calm logistics and calculated emotion. "They want a restoration, not a reckoning," said one veteran advisor. The subtlety was deliberate. Palace officials know punishing Camilla would backfire. So instead, they used Diana as shield, Camilla as symbol. And while unity is loudly proclaimed, change is quietly made. With the message cast, the world began reacting. And not everyone bought the palace's carefully curved narrative. Headlines challenged the spin. Social media surged with hashtags for both Camilla and Diana. Polls fluctuated. Now it was time for genuine voices to emerge. From the media, from Camilla herself. The next chapter, the media frenzy and public reckoning. Media frenzy and public reaction. Headlines around the world roared with impact. King's decision rocks royal family, ran The Telegraph. Camilla's courts minus title, shouted Metro. Even international outlets weighed in. Japan's Asahi newspaper wondered aloud if Britain was dethroning its queen. Commentary videos spliced old footage of Diana smiling convincingly with shots of a subdued Camilla. The narrative had shifted. Social platforms exploded. Team Diana trended with users celebrating the preservation of her legacy. But hashtag Team Camilla pushed back. "She's been judged long enough," said one viral tweet. Influencers debated fairness, empathy, and redemption. Public polls reflected the division. 47% felt Charles made the right call. 43% empathized with Camilla. A Times writer observed, Camilla became a test case of forgiveness versus loyalty. TV networks paraded royal experts. A former press secretary noted quietly on live television, "This is the first time a queen consort has been publicly downgraded at the altar of legacy." Legal analysts and cultural historians voiced concerns. "Do we elevate memory over living loyalty?" said one. The media frenzy wasn't just chronicling events. It was questioning the moral compass behind them. Royal commentators also noticed a deeper shift. In decades past, such a move would be muted. But now, everything, from event programs to viral clips, amplified the moment. The monarchy's optics are digital, instant, and permanent. One pundit summing it up said, "This wasn't just history, it's live history. And the public is in every frame." As public opinion fractured and media saturated every angle, all eyes turned toward Camilla herself. Would she speak, remain silent, or quietly rally support in private? Her response could define not just her legacy, but the future path of this monarchy. Coming next, the Queen Consort's reaction and what this moment means for her standing inside the royal household. Camilla's response. At 10 a.m., Camilla released a brief but heartfelt statement. "I remain dedicated to service and honor the memory of Diana." Almost immediately, aides posted the same summary on official channels. Her tone wasn't defensive, it was steady. "Still resilient, still royal," read one headline. It was clear she intended to stay the course, not surrender. Charitable organizations rallied quietly. Patron groups posted supportive messages on social platforms, grateful for her work. Even some community leaders made public remarks. "She's more than titles." But close sources say Camilla was shaken. She canceled multiple photo op events in the following week, opted instead for low-key visits and private gatherings. "She's regrouping," one aide told us. Inside palace walls, reactions to Camilla's statement were mixed. Advisors aligned with Kate applauded her restraint. A Williams supporting aide told the press she stepped back with dignity. But Charles loyalists were more skeptical. They reportedly argued the statement did nothing to counter the past. One insider said, "She showed up, but she didn't stand up." Critics seized on the silence. "Too little, too late," read one tabloid splash. Another called it an afterthought. At the same time, supporters said her measured tone represented a mature royal. Diana's old supporters were less impressed, but Camilla's message did shift the tone of the crisis. She wasn't fighting back, but she wasn't disappearing either. She had claimed her space. Charles speaks out. After days of intense speculation, King Charles finally broke his silence. In a solemn televised statement from Clarence House, he said, "My duty is to both memory and the moment." Dressed in muted royal blues, he appeared fragile, yet composed. He acknowledged the letter's authenticity and its emotional toll on the royal household. Charles didn't deny the decision. He framed it as preservation. "We honor Diana not to rewrite the past, but to steady the future," he said. Analysts noted the wording was careful. It didn't apologize to Camilla, but didn't insult her either. It was the king's tightrope act, balancing legacy with loyalty. Throughout the speech, Charles hinted at personal pain. His voice cracked when he spoke of long-held regrets. He praised Camilla's dedication, but didn't refer to her as Queen Consort, only my wife. It was subtle, but royal watchers caught it immediately. One veteran royal reporter tweeted, "That word shift spoke volumes." The public response was swift. Some praised the king's transparency. Others questioned why he didn't do more to defend Camilla. But one headline summed up the moment: a king torn in two. Charles had tried to appease Diana's memory and Camilla's dignity. In doing so, he may have pleased no one, but preserved the monarchy. As Charles addressed the nation, ripple effects moved across the rest of the royal family. Titles, appearances, alliances, everything was shifting. And while Camilla stepped back, the rest of the royals began stepping in. What followed was a behind-the-scenes realignment of the royal court. Coming next, how the Windsor family is reshaping itself in the shadow of Diana's legacy. Royal family ripple effects. Prince William's reaction was quietly powerful. No official statement, but actions spoke louder. He and Kate immediately filled Camilla's cancelled appearances. Behind the scenes, William reportedly praised his father's speech, saying it showed strength through accountability. Royal sources say he's already stepping into a statesman role. The next monarch may be preparing early. Prince Harry's response, however, remained uncertain. While his camp issued no public comment, insiders claimed he welcomed the letter's emergence. Harry always believed Diana's voice deserved more weight in the palace, said one confidant. But he stopped short of celebrating Camilla's demotion, citing the need for healing. It was quiet validation, not victory. Other royals reshuffled. Princess Anne quietly absorbed several of Camilla's former duties. Prince Edward hosted a key diplomatic dinner in Camilla's absence. These moves didn't need statements. They simply happened. The monarchy is self-correcting, said a former royal equerry. They don't wait, they adapt. And this time, it moved fast. But the most notable shift came in alliances. Staff realignments, subtle social shifts, and public appearances began to favor the Wales household. Camilla loyalists were reportedly reassigned to non-senior roles. One royal insider shared, "It's the beginning of a new court, one that remembers Diana, but crowns Kate." The silent reshuffling was complete. As the royal family moved into damage control, one name rose above them all: Diana. Her legacy, once quietly honored, was now being actively restored. Public conversation shifted from scandal to memory. And with it came a deeper question. How does a monarchy move forward while still tied to its past? Let's explore the legacy she left, and the one she reshaped. Legacy and public memory. The letter turned out to be more than a scandal. It was a historical trigger. Diana's legacy, already beloved, surged into prominence. Candlelight vigils, floral tributes, and mural art reappeared across London. The Diana Memorial Fund reported a spike in donations. One headline captured it perfectly: "The People's Princess Still Rules Hearts." Public sentiment turned emotional. People recalled interviews, speeches, her charity work. Footage of Diana hugging AIDS patients, sitting with landmine survivors, and laughing with children flooded timelines. Commentators noted, this wasn't just nostalgia, it was realignment. Diana had re-entered royal relevance, not through a documentary or biography, but through her own forgotten words. Charles's pivot to honor her memory didn't just appease critics, it repositioned the crown. analysts noted a strategic pivot. The monarchy now belongs to the legacy of women: Diana, Kate, even Anne. It became less about sovereign rule and more about moral compass. Diana wasn't just a figure of the past. She became a touchstone for the present. But the risks remained. Some feared the monarchy would be permanently haunted by Diana's shadow. Could they honor her without losing themselves to the past? One royal historian noted, "Legacy is powerful, but only when it's shared, not worshipped." The royal family had reopened a chapter they thought had closed. Now, they had to write the next one wisely. As tributes flowed and memories returned, one big question loomed. What now? Will Camilla reclaim her space? Will Charles stabilize his reign? Or will this mark the beginning of a broader royal transformation? The monarchy stands at a crossroads, with Diana's voice echoing louder than ever. Let's look ahead to what the future might hold. What comes next? Camilla remains out of the spotlight. Whether it's temporary or permanent remains unclear. Some speculate she may step away from public life altogether. Others say she's preparing a quiet return. One close friend told the press she won't go down without dignity. But the monarchy may have already made its choice. Charles faces another decision. Will he formally redefine Camilla's title, or let this be a soft fade? Some insiders suggest a reconciliation is possible. A gesture of return, not reinstallation. But others say the institution is moving on. A former palace staffer said, "This is William and Kate's monarchy now. They're not waiting for the baton." Royal watchers speculate this could inspire other reforms. Will future queens need public approval? Will past legacies influence future roles? Some even wonder if Charles might abdicate early, allowing William to take the throne while still young. One BBC analyst said, "If the palace learned anything, it's that silence can't bury legacy." For now, Camilla's story remains unresolved. But Diana's voice has re-entered the room, and everyone's listening. The royal family may have intended to bury the past with time. Instead, it's now guiding their every move, as one. Columnist wrote, "Charles made a choice for Diana's legacy, but at what cost to Camilla? And the monarchy? Camilla has stepped back. Charles has spoken. And Diana's voice echoes louder than ever. The monarchy now walks a tightrope, balancing legacy, loyalty, and public trust. Will Camilla return to favor? Or is this the beginning of a new royal era, one shaped by memory rather than protocol? One thing is clear. This wasn't just about a letter. It was about truth, power, and perception. With William and Kate rising and the world watching, the palace has reached a pivotal turning point. Diana may be gone, but in this moment, her influence reigns. And the crown? It's adjusting to the weight of it all.